My name is Manu Charm, and I wanted to share with you guys some tips and tricks that I use when I create QR codes. Because recently I've been asked, hey, how do you make your QR codes? Why do they look so good? Well, I'm going to show you guys. I would say the first step is deciding what style you want your flag. I tend to have two different styles. Either a simple flag where it's basically just the title of your town, and usually a border or a colorful theme to it. Or like if you say like your town is called Rosewood, a theme would be like wooden planks, putting roses everywhere. Or if your town's like something called, I don't know, Lemonade, I would put little lemon pieces everywhere, something like that. Now, the second style is a little more complicated. It's either like a little scene, you have a table with lanterns, or it could be a whole field of flowers. This typically is ones that have more of a town name, like Red Acre. I get a lot of them with just town in the name, or Ville at the end. So it's up to you. You could base your flag on the name of your town, or maybe there's just a style you prefer. But those are the two I tend to go towards. So the first flag is actually the second option I mentioned, because I feel it's the most common one, but I can see how it's very daunting to start. But I hope I can make it a little easier for you guys to understand. So first, I'm actually going to start out picking the colors that I know I'll be working with. I tend to start with the medium tones, and then I would pick the lighter tones and the darker tones for the highlights and shadows. When I tend to pick brown for the trees, I actually choose the skin tone area, just because I like the way those browns work together. Now, there's actually two different styles you can draw. You can either draw it more pixel by pixel, I don't know what else you would call it, or you can do more freehand, which I think both have their own uses. Pixel by pixel allows for more symmetry, or maybe there's a certain style you want to capture. I typically use it whenever I want to make the Animal Crossing trees, since it's literally three circles and a stump. But if I want to give a forest more character, I tend to do more freestyle trees, because then I can bend them any way I want. But I'll show you guys an example of a pixel by pixel style tree first. So I literally drew three vertical lines and added some details at the bottom that suggest tree roots, and tried my best to draw circles, because since the website I'm using doesn't have the circle tool or such, like in game, I have to kind of guess how to draw the circles. And I just left a little bit of empty space at the bottom because I didn't want to bother coloring that. But that's going to be basically where the shadows are. But I colored everything with the mid-tones. So I color in the bushes with the darker tone, and almost like a grid pattern. That way it blends in with the mid-tone, and it, I guess, kind of gives it a texture. I then just go in the highlights and do basically the same thing but on the top. And just like that, it already looks more like a tree. And of course, if there's something you don't like, you can always change it up. Because I don't do my trees the exact same every time. I tend to change little bits of it, mostly because I don't remember exactly how I do them. Same with the trunk of the tree. You can either shade one side of it, or another thing you do is shade both sides so it has more of a 3D cylindrical shape to it. Make sure to shade underneath the bunch of leaves so they look more connected to the trunk. I also shade the inside of the roots to give more dimension to them. Also, with the darker green, you just add a little shadow underneath it to help connect the tree to the grass. And you can make the shadow as big as you want. And if you leave some parts where there is no shadow, it makes it look like the light is going through the leaves. Then you can finish off by taking the lighter brown and adding highlights to the trunk. Now, if you wanted to make it look more like an Animal Crossing tree, go back to the skin tones, and I pick one of the lighter ones, and I use those to create the rings that you usually see on the trees in game. And remember, for any part that goes over the shadows, use a darker tone. And the midtones, just use a lighter color. You don't need three colors when it comes to the little details. And just like that, you got an Animal Crossing tree. And I'm just gonna color the skies so it's a little easier to see. So the next tree I'm showing is the freehand tree. And like I said, it's great for giving character, or I guess when you're doing a forest, sometimes it's easier to tell the trees apart because you can make them have more space between each other and you can adjust it so the bushes of leaves isn't overlapping as much. But the biggest upside is drawing any shape you want. So I'm just going to draw a very curvy tree, and the leaves on top, I'm basically going to draw it like clouds, big and puffy. This is also a reason why I have the first tree all the way to the left, is because I knew I was going to make this tree big. And much like the first tree, you're just going to shade it the same way. You shade the bottom of the bushes the leaves, but I also shade a little bit up here because trees usually have the leaves in different bunches. And then again, I'm adding highlights around the tree. Feel free to place it wherever you want. But this time for this tree, I'm just going to show you how the shading looks like on one side. And feel free, if you want to add more details, you can add even darker shading, fruits, add whatever you want. I'm just going to add some little baby branches to them, just to show you how to do it in my style. Now next, what I want to show you guys is, I would say a little more difficult, but I'm going to try to make it easy. So to add more depth to your flag, I'm using a lighter green because when things go in the distance, they often absorb more blue. With the lighter green, I first attempted to draw a hill, but later I'm going to change it to just a flat plane to make it easier. Now, a little trick I usually do is to help blend the distance with the foreground. I usually draw bushes. That way the change isn't as jarring. Now, let's say we want to change this to a forest and have trees in the background. While using the same green, I'm just drawing very vague tree shapes. So as you see, I have a trunk and they have bushes of green, and that's all you need to suggest it's a tree. And I'm leaving enough spaces between the silhouettes so you're actually able to tell that they're trees. And vary up the size. I have some small trees, some tall trees, leaves of different shapes, gives them more character. Oh, and don't forget the little branches. And look at that! We got like a park, a forest. So now that the trees are done, I want to show you guys how to do little details, like flowers and fruits and such like that. Again, like the trees, I'm going to pick a mid-tone and a darker tone. But because they're so small, I'm only going to have the two colors. Now, one example of flowers I do is literally I draw 3 groups of 2 pixels at a time, alternating between the colors so that they don't blend together. And then I take the dark green and draw a stem. When it comes to adding details, it's all about tricking the eye. The second flower I like to do is my favorite when I'm doing a field of flowers, just because I guess the simplicity of it I really love is I literally draw kind of like a cross, but the middle is going to be, I don't know what you call it, the middle of the flower. So either I use a brown, a beige, a white, or a yellow sometimes. And then to color in the petals, I do the 3 bottom ones as the shadow tone. The one petal on top is going to be the lighter. And then I literally draw a shadow underneath it, and that's my flower. Like I said, it's cute, it's simple, I love it. And then you throw the flowers wherever you want them. I'm actually changing some to white because I don't want it to blend in with that tree, because the colors are not contrast enough. And just to show you one more little detail, I'm just going to quickly add a peach to the tree. And as you can see, I don't get the shape the first time. I would say a big part of making QR codes is playing around until you get the right shape. It's not very often that I get the shape I want the first time. But I'm just using colors that I already have selected, and now I just have a simple peach in the tree. Now the very last step that I want to go over with you guys when it comes to creating QR code is actually the title placement. And when it comes to the title, generally you can place it wherever you want. Right in the middle, middle top, middle bottom. Sometimes when I get a flag that's based on a beach, I like to put the title in like one of the bottom corners. Makes it look kind of like a postcard. Again, adds character. Now, because of the website I'm using, I actually have to find the middle. But if you're creating flags on an original Animal Crossing New Leaf, it has everything divided for you, so you don't have to count the pixels. So what I tend to do is I actually try to find the middle of the word, and I work from the middle letter and I work my way out. That way it's a little easier to have it evenly spaced. I don't get it right all the time, but I found some ways to help me work faster. So for example, I'm going to be using the word woods, and the middle letter is an O. What I should have done is, because W is such a big letter, I should have moved the O 1 pixel to the right. That way it would have evenly spaced it out some more. And honestly, if you're doing this on an original Animal Crossing game, don't worry about ruining your flag because you can always save and exit if you don't like where you placed it. And of course, it's important to have your flag contrast your background because you don't want it to get lost. The trees in the background, I actually move them around the letters so that it's easier to see. Another way to solve this is giving your name a border, making it two-tone. If you want more tips with fonts, I actually have a post of it on Tumblr, and I'll be glad to share that in the description for you guys. And with that, our flag is now complete. Next, I'll be showing you the simple flag. Some things I went over in the complicated flag, you can actually carry over to the simple flag. So typically, when I do simple flags, it usually consists of 4 elements: the background, the title, the border, and the theme slash details. When it comes to borders, I prefer just a plain background, but if you make it not distracting enough, you can have stripes, dots, anything like that that doesn't capture the eye too much from the title and doesn't make it look super busy. Now for these, I typically have the title in the middle, just because I feel like it's the main focus of it. And it's also important to put the title first so that it actually fits in your flag. Because I've done it multiple times where I add a border, but sadly the name of the town couldn't be centered in the flag because the border was in the way. For my example, I'm just going to do a grape themed flag. So I'm going to call it Grapevine. It also shows you that if your name is 2 words put together, you can split it up and have them on different rows. So typically I like to add borders just because it helps frame the whole thing. But there's so many ways you can do different borders. I like doing borders that add hearts in the corners, form a square in the corner. I love the dotted lines, but sometimes you just need a simple border on the outside or 1 pixel away. And I also use a color that stands out from the background because once again, you don't want it getting lost. It also helps if the border matches your overall theme with your flag. Now comes the last part where I like to add the little finishing touches. Usually I draw the character or object underneath the town name to show the overall theme. And with this, I'm just going to add little vines around the border to show that it's a grapevine. I also like adding little things in the corners. So in this case, I'm adding little grapes. You can play around with the title too. I'm adding some leaves, some vines, because it is a grapevine. But yeah, go wild with it. Have fun with your theme. And then to give it some depth, you can add shadows. It can make the title 3D. It can make the objects look like it's actually over your flag. And another thing I like to do is if I have an object on the flag, I love to add a border. Helps it stick out, keeps it separated, and usually it's the main focus, so I want your eye to go there. And honestly, that's all you need for your simple flag. Anyways, I hope this tutorial's been useful to you. And if you have any questions or maybe want to see something in a different video, leave it in the comments. I want to hear what you guys think and maybe some questions you guys have that I could cover in a future video for you. Anyways, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next time.